Imagine a court sentencing someone to 5 hours of solitary confinement every day. No movement, no sunlight, just a screen, just comparison, just noise. We'd call that cruel. But right now, the average American teenager is voluntarily, or maybe not so voluntarily, doing exactly that. 5 hours a day on social media, every single day. And here's what makes this more than just a kids these days moment. The science is catching up, and what it's showing us isn't just correlation, it's causation. Population-level mental health shifts in countries across multiple continents, all pointing in the same direction. This isn't a moral panic. This is a documented trend, and today we're going to walk through exactly what the evidence says, why it matters, and what any of us can actually do about it. Section 1. The numbers that should stop you. Let's start with the raw numbers because they're genuinely staggering. The American Psychological Association found that the average US teen spends nearly 5 hours per day on social media apps, and that's just the 7 most popular platforms. YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram alone account for 87% of that time. Now, pause on that for a second. 5 hours. If you slept 8 hours and went to school for 6, that leaves maybe 3 to 4 hours for dinner, homework, a shower, and a conversation with another human being. Social media is eating the remaining time and then some. But the average doesn't tell the full story. When you look at the extremes, it gets darker. About 1 in 4 13 and 14-year-olds is on social media for 7 or more hours per day. 7 hours. That's essentially a full-time job for a 13-year-old. And the mental health data that maps onto those numbers is striking. Teens with the highest social media use are far more likely to rate their mental health as poor or very poor compared to the lowest use group. The highest users are twice as likely to report suicidal intent or self-harm in the past year. They're nearly 3 times as likely to report poor body image. Now, and this is important, correlation isn't causation. Maybe kids who already feel bad just use social media more as an escape. Maybe the platform isn't the cause. Maybe it's just where struggling people go. That's a fair objection, and it's exactly what the next section blows apart. Section 2. The natural experiments. Here's where the story gets genuinely fascinating and a little unsettling. Researchers at MIT, Bocconi University, and Tel Aviv University found a way to essentially run a controlled experiment on social media's effect on mental health, something that would be impossible to do today. When Facebook first launched in 2004, it didn't go everywhere at once. It started at Harvard, then Columbia, Stanford, and Yale. Then, over the next 2.5 years, it rolled out to 775 different college campuses one by one in a staggered sequence. That staggered rollout is gold for researchers because it means you can compare students at a school that just got Facebook to students at a school that hasn't gotten it yet, holding everything else equal. It's as close to a natural experiment as social science ever gets. What they found? When Facebook arrived at a college campus, student mental health declined. Not drifted, declined. Depression symptoms increased. Anxiety disorder reports increased. Students became more likely to say that mental health problems were hurting their academic performance. And the effect wasn't random. Students who were already more vulnerable to mental illness were hit hardest. Students who carried credit card debt who could now see supposedly wealthier peers living their best lives on the feed were hit harder. Students who lived off campus and were less socially connected to begin with were hit harder. The researchers estimated that Facebook's introduction produced a mental health decline equivalent to about 22% of what you'd expect from losing your job for a college student, just from getting access to a social media app. And the mechanism? Unfavorable social comparison. Not misinformation, not screen radiation. The simple, ancient human act of looking at someone else's life and feeling like yours is less. But that was Facebook in 2004, a text-heavy, photo-light network for college students. The platforms teenagers use today algorithmically optimized, infinite scroll, short-form video, beauty filters, like counts. Follower metrics are doing the same thing, but with a fire hose. Section 3. It's not just the United States. You might be thinking, maybe this is an American problem, maybe it's cultural, maybe US teens are just more fragile or more online or living through other stressors that are distorting the data. Except the same pattern showed up in Germany, Italy, Spain, and across Europe, and it tracked with something specific: the rollout of high-speed internet. As broadband and then mobile data became widely available in different regions at different times, researchers were able to track what happened to adolescent mental health in those windows. The results echoed what happened with Facebook. When fast internet arrived, mental health among young people worsened consistently across different countries, different cultures, different healthcare systems, and different political environments. The World Health Organization's data tells a similar story. In a study of almost 280,000 young people aged 11 to 15 across 44 countries, the share showing signs of problematic social media behavior rose from 7% in 2018 to 11% in 2022. That's a jump of more than 50% in 4 years. And that was before the post-pandemic surge in screen time. This is what researchers mean by a population-level shift. It's not that a few troubled kids are struggling more. The entire distribution is moving. The average is getting worse. And that doesn't happen from individual choices alone. That happens when a technology embeds itself into the environment so deeply that it changes the baseline conditions for everyone. Section 4. Why teen brains are specifically vulnerable. Here's the part most people skip, but it's the most important piece of the puzzle. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that handles decision-making, impulse control, and long-term thinking, isn't fully developed until around age 25. Teenagers are literally operating with an incomplete executive control system, and social media is specifically designed to exploit the part of the brain that is fully developed in teenagers, the reward system. Every notification, every like, every comment triggers a dopamine response. Teen brains are disproportionately sensitive to those social rewards. That's not a bug in teenagers, it's an evolutionary feature. Adolescence is supposed to be the time when social belonging feels like everything, because historically, being rejected by your tribe was a survival threat. But now that ancient reward system is getting inputs 24/7 from a machine calibrated by billions of dollars of engineering to maximize the time your thumb keeps scrolling. Early findings from Yale's social media and adolescent health research team showed that teens with heavier social media use displayed different patterns in executive functioning, the very skills they're still trying to develop. Attention, impulse control, organization. The research found these were being disrupted at a population level, not just in clinically at-risk kids. There's also the sleep angle, which almost never gets enough airtime. Late-night scrolling suppresses melatonin due to blue light exposure and delays the sleep cycle. Teens who sleep less have worse emotional regulation, lower mood, and reduced cognitive performance the next day. Then they reach for the phone in the morning. The cycle reinforces itself. Section 5. What actually works? Okay, so what do we do with this? First, and this matters, the goal isn't to make you feel helpless or to demonize every teenager with a phone. The research doesn't say social media is only destructive. It says heavy, early, unstructured use is where the harm concentrates. There are a few things the evidence actually supports. Usage floors, not just ceilings. A 2024 study in JAMA Pediatrics found that reducing social media use to 30 minutes per day decreased depression symptoms within 3 weeks. Not eliminated, but meaningfully reduced. The lever is real. Age and developmental stage matter enormously. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends delaying social media access until at least age 14 to 16 because brain development is meaningfully further along at that stage. The research backs them up. Early adolescence 13 to 15 is when vulnerability to social media's psychological effects peaks. Device-free bedrooms? This one is low cost and high impact. Charging phones outside the bedroom removes the single biggest driver of late-night scrolling and the resulting sleep disruption. That alone changes the math on mood, attention, and academic performance. And for creators, parents, and anyone building products for young people, the platform design matters as much as the use. The mechanisms that produce harm: infinite scroll, algorithmic amplification of emotionally provocative content, public metrics like follower counts and likes aren't unavoidable features of social media. They're choices that can be changed. Outro. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The mental health decline in teenagers didn't happen because an entire generation suddenly became weaker. It happened because an environment changed rapidly and globally, and the brains of young people weren't equipped to adapt to it in real time. That's actually the most important reframe. This isn't a character problem, it's a design problem, and design problems can be solved. The Facebook campus study showed us that access to a social platform on its own moved mental health metrics at scale. The broadband rollout studies showed it wasn't just one country, one culture, one set of circumstances. This is a pattern. What you do with that depends on who you are. A parent, a policymaker, a creator, a teenager trying to figure out why everything feels harder than it should. But if there's one thing the evidence is clear on, it's this. The 5 hours a day isn't neutral. It's not just passing time. It's shaping developing brains in ways we're only beginning to fully measure. The sentence has already been handed down. Now we get to decide what the appeal looks like. If this video made you think differently about something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.